All right, accounting one kiddos, let's get started on our 5-1 work together. As I said in our lecture, chapter 5 kind of diverges a little bit into the banking realm of accounting. Um, so our first part of our 3-step problem today is to do the endorsements, and then we're going to write out a couple of check stubs and checks in steps 2 and 3. So, first things first, it says for each of these situations, prepare the appropriate endorsement. Enter student signature in the cells where you would normally enter the endorser's signature. So the reason we put student signature is obviously because Apply and MindTap, they're graded automatically by that fancy algorithm. And so it doesn't know all of your names. So that's why we use student signature. On your workbook and on your test, you would sign however the instructions say. Sometimes they say manager signature. Sometimes they say to use your own name. Whichever it happens to be, just make sure you read the directions carefully. So our first type of endorsement is a blank endorsement. If you remember, our blank endorsement is just confirming the person that is on the front of the check. So the correct answer here is to just put student's signature. Now, I don't know why Applia has us do this, because technically you don't need to. It's one of those, their little quirks, but they want you to write student's signature in each one of these separate lines. You would not need to do this. You do not need to do it on the test. You do not need to do it on the workbook. And you would certainly not need to do it if you were signing an actual check at the bank. But it's one of Applia's little quirks. So like I said, just fill in the rest of them and we'll be okay. All right, on to our second one, which is a special endorsement. Remember that a special endorsement is where we transfer the ownership to a new owner of the check. So what we do is on the first line, we write the words pay to the order of. And then we pay to whoever is getting the check transferred to them, which in our instructions it says is Clara Kwan. So we plug in Clara Kwan's name here. And then we still have to sign our own names because remember, our name is on the front of the check. So we have to write student signature here. And this says that we are giving this check over to Claire Kwan. That's a special endorsement. And our third and final one is a restrictive endorsement. A restrictive endorsement is where we stop the transfer of ownership, and typically it's where we want to make sure it goes directly into a certain account. Now, whether we have the account number or whether we just have the account name, that'll depend on the instructions, so just make sure you read that carefully. So our first line is the for deposit only to the account of, and then it's going into Grantsburg Accounting. And then we still need to sign because remember, our name is on the front of the check. So I don't know that there's really a great way to remember these. You might just have to watch the lecture a few times, read the book, practice your work togethers. But a special endorsement is where we pay to the order of, and then whoever's getting the check transferred to them. And a restrictive endorsement is where we say for deposit only into the account of, and then sometimes this could be an account number, sometimes it's just the name of the business owner, whatever it happens to be, and then of course your student signature. So those are our 3 endorsements. Let's head over and do our first check. So it says our instructions are that we're going to record the balance brought forward on check stub number 151, which is $2,145.88. We're going to record a deposit of $316 made on June 30th of the current year on check stub number 151. We're going to prepare check 151 to A1 Computers for repairs of $148. We use June 30th as the date. Enter student signature in the cell where we would sign the check. So there's lots of instructions here. Let's take it a sentence at a time so that we don't miss anything. So I'm going to scroll down and just show you what your check looks like. Remember a couple of things that I pointed out during the lecture. This dotted line signifies where the check stub is. This is your check stub. And then this is your actual check. So remember what happens is this gets torn away on the dotted line and the check gets given to the business. And then we keep this for our records. So if you remember, we always fill out the check stub first because a lot of times people will forget to do that and then you have no record of check 151. You just know that it's check 151. You don't know what it's for if you forget to fill out the check stub and you just write the check first. So, couple of things. It says first we want to record the balance brought forward on check stub number 151, which is for $2,145.88. So we come down here to where it says our balance brought forward, and we plug in $2,145.88. Okay, that is the instruction for the first sentence. Then it says we want to record a deposit of $316 that was made on June 30th of the current year on check stub number 151. So we come down to the spot where it says deposited, and this is just for the date, so we just put 6/30, and then the amount of the deposit was $316. Now we can update our new subtotal here. If we deposit money into an account, does anyone know what that means? Deposit, remember, is that money is going in. A withdrawal means it's coming out. So that means we need to add $316 to our balance, which should bring our balance up to $2,461.88. Okay? So that is the second sentence instruction. Our third sentence instruction is to prepare check number 151 to A1 Computers for $148. We use June 30th as the date. So again, we always fill the check stub out first. So we start over at the top. This little spot up here is just telling us the specifics about check number 151. This down here is kind of our running total of how much we have in our checking account. So they're two kind of separate issues here. So first things first, we're going to fill out the information for the check. So we already have the check number that's pre-printed on our check. The dollar amount for this check is $148, so we plug in 148 there. The date for this check is June 30th, so they want us to type in June, so we type in June 30th. It is to A1 Computers, and it is for repairs. So all of that information is just coming from this third and fourth sentence, I guess. So just make sure you read carefully. And now that we have that filled out, what we can actually do is scroll down here and figure out how much we'll have left in our checking account after we write this check. So since it doesn't say anything about service charges or dishonored checks or anything like that, we actually leave the other section blank, which means that our subtotal is still $2,461.88. And then again, the amount of this check is $148. So we plug that in here. And when we write a check, that's considered a withdrawal. So we need to subtract 148 from the 2,461 that we have in there, which means our up-to-date balance in our checking account is $2,313.88. So that's how we fill out our check stub. Okay. Next, we want to go over and fill out our check with the same information that we have up here. So the first thing we do is we put our date, which is June 30th. We are paying this check to the order of A1 Computers. And then we have our dollar amount. So our dollar amount for this check was 148. Excuse me. And then we have the spot where we need to write it down in words. This is the hardest part about doing this in Applia because they're very particular about it. So if you need to, if you get stuck on one of them when you're doing your work or you're on your own or your application, just come up and ask, and we can look up the answer key and see where we maybe are getting an issue. But remember, we have to write this out in words. So we start out and we say, oops, better click here, 148, and you don't have to say the word dollars. You just have to write out the number. So 148, and then we say, and no /100. That's our way of saying, and no cents. If it's just .00, there's no cents happening. We put no /100. Okay, so that's the trickiest part, especially in Applia, because they're very specific about what they want you to put there. And then last but not least, we fill out the bottom part of the check, which is the for. You remember it's for repairs. And then this is where we would write student signature, where we would technically sign our name. So that's it. Congratulations. You did our first check. I am going to run out of time, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this video here and make a short one for our last step. So I will meet you over in part 2, and we'll finish up check number 152.